And then we will share this on our social media sites after. I'll send you guys an email tomorrow morning and let you know where it is. So if you want to re-listen to anything, you're free to do that, or share it with anyone else. That would be great as well. Let's see. I guess I should introduce myself. My name is Nancy Chambers, and I'm the agricultural technician with Brazeau County, and I'm just going to serve as your host today. We have two presenters that are going to take turns with the presentation today. So I will start by introducing Donya McCann, and Donya is the Manager of Agricultural Services here at Brazeau County. She has a diploma in resource management from NATE, and she has experience of 10 years working with agricultural service boards, and the last 6 years she has served as an agricultural fieldman. Now, once Donya has done her presentation, we'll hear from Corbin, and Corbin Panconen is our assistant ag fieldman, and she's also our ALICE coordinator here at Brazeau County. She has an environmental diploma from Lakeland College, majoring in conservation and restoration ecology. She also has an agricultural degree from the University of Saskatchewan with a major in environmental science. So she grew up on a small farm and spent 2 summers doing vegetation control for a spraying company, as well as 2 summers as a weed inspector. And she's now worked with Brazeau County for almost 1.5 years. So we do have a lot of experience between Donya and Corbin. And with that, I will turn the presentation over to Donya.
I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. I'm really glad that we found an alternate method for this workshop to still go forward. So thanks again. So today is our weed workshop hosted by Brazeau County. We'll just go over a quick agenda. First, I will be going over the Weed Control Act and regulations with you. Corbin will be doing weed identification and then weed inspection and control in Brazeau County. We'll be going over our county-specific programs, and then at the end, we can take any questions you may have. So this is what the cover of the Weed Control Act looks like. And it starts out with defining noxious and prohibited noxious species. So a noxious weed under the Act is one that the landowner or occupant must control the spread of. And a prohibited noxious, these ones are less common in Alberta, and because they're less common, the government wants the landowner or occupant to destroy all growing and reproductive parts. The goal with prohibited noxious species is eradication. Sorry, my clicker's being a little fussy. So the Act also requires Alberta residents to prevent the spread of weeds. So a landowner or occupant must not move anything that will spread any legislated species. So whether this be weed seeds or growing parts or roots, they want you to prevent that. And yeah, like I mentioned, it includes any noxious or prohibited noxious weed seed. So things like hay bales or straw bales, equipment, they want those to be clean before moving any of those pieces of equipment. So under the Weed Control Act, municipalities in Alberta are required to appoint weed inspectors in order to carry out the duties under the Act. So a weed inspector must carry identification. With ours, you'll see a picture of the weed inspector on it, a signature from our CAO, and the term that weed inspector is appointed for. And they may enter on private property at a reasonable time of day to either inspect for weeds or to identify a plant that they might not be able to see exactly what it is from the road. And they can also monitor compliance of the Act and carry out enforcement of a notice. So it is not required under the legislation to give that landowner notice that they're entering, but it must be at a reasonable time of day and they cannot enter any buildings. So, weed notices. Corbin will go into a bit more detail about this, but I will present to you on what a weed notice is under the legislation. So it is a legal document, and it may be issued if compliance is not met. So we will mail it to the most current address on the tax roll and either hand deliver it or post it on the property. Sometimes it's not always possible to determine exactly where the landowner lives, or they might live outside of the county. So that would be situations where we would post it on the property. And we post it at an obvious location, so at a approach or other area that looks like you can access the land from. The weed notice will also specify how compliance is expected to be met, and that may possibly include a method of control, and there will always be an expiry date for compliance. And if that compliance is not achieved, that is the point where the weed notice will be enforced. So there's also the weed control regulation, and this is where you get more detail. So this is where they list the designated species as noxious or prohibited noxious. There's approximately, I want to say, 75 on the legislation. We don't have all of them in Brazeau County, and that's what Corbin's presentation will be about, is the common species that we do have in Brazeau County. It specifies how you can appeal a notice. So an appeal, if the landowner feels that they have grounds for an appeal, it must be delivered personally or sent by registered mail, and there is a timeline. So it has to be received before the notice expires or within 10 days, whichever is less. So it must be in writing and include a name and address of the appellant, copy of the notice being appealed, a description of the land, reason for the appeal, and the $500 appeal fee. An independent appeal panel will hear the appeal within 5 days of it being received, and then give written notice of the appeal decision to the landowner. If that appeal is successful, that $500 appeal fee will be returned to the landowner. If the appeal is unsuccessful, there is also an option to appeal to the Minister of Agriculture and Forestry. And the timelines on those appeals for the minister to make a decision are not specified in the legislation, so it can be a longer ongoing process than the municipal appeal. So I'll pass it to Corbin now for the weed identification portion.
Hi guys, it's Corbin here. I'm just going to quickly go over some of the common weeds that we will find in Brazeau County, and then I am just going to talk about the difference between a weed report that we send out and a weed notice, and then our weed inspection process, as well as some programs that we have for you guys to help with weed control. So tall buttercup is one of the species that you'll find quite a bit in Brazeau County. It is a perennial plant that reproduces by seed. It has an oil that is toxic to livestock. It causes blistering of the skin. However, once the plant is dried, it's no longer toxic. Tall buttercup prefers moist to well-drained soils, but thrives in wetter conditions. Plant numbers will drop in dry years, then increase the following year when the soil is wet. Leaves are deeply divided, usually in 3 to 5 lobes. The flowers are bright yellow, 5-lobed, and have a wax on them, giving them a shiny appearance. Each plant can produce 250 seeds, which can stay viable in the soil for 2 to 4 years. Oxeye Daisy is another common one that you'll find in the county. Oxeye Daisy is usually called the pretty wildflower. However, it is an invasive plant that can aggressively spread. It is a perennial plant that reproduces mainly by seed, but also has a shallow creeping root system. Each plant can produce 500 seeds that remain viable for a few years in the soil. Oxeye Daisy has a large impact in pastures and haylands. It easily outcompetes native vegetation because cattle do not eat it and it thrives in poor nutrient conditions. The leaves are toothed and decrease in size as they get closer to the top, and flowers have white petals with a bright yellow center. Canada thistle is another very common species in the county. It is an aggressive perennial that spreads mainly by its roots. The roots can spread up to 4.5 meters horizontally and up to 6 meters vertically. This plant can also live in a variety of soil conditions, allowing it the opportunity to spread very easy. The stems of Canada thistle are branched towards the top and get woody as the plant matures. The leaves are lance-shaped, alternate, and a dark green. Leaves can also vary from smooth to spiny, but most of the time you will find spines on them. Flowers are found at the end of the stems in clusters. These flowers are an urn shape with spineless bracts, and the color can vary from white, pink, or purple. Wild caraway is a biennial plant. It produces a low rosette in the first year, then in the second year it produces the flower. It can even flower in the third year before dying off. It has escaped crop life in Canada and has become an aggressive invader. It's not a registered weed under provincial legislation. However, it has been elevated as a prohibited noxious within Brazeau County. It can grow in a variety of environmental conditions, allowing it to easily spread. Stems are branched, and there can be multiple stems per plant. Leaves are very carrot-like. It can look similar to common yarrow when it's in its rosette form, which is a native species found a lot of time in pastures. Flowers are tiny and white in clusters at the top of the plant. Wild caraway has both male and female flowers, allowing it to self-fertilize. White cockle. White cockle is a short-lived perennial. It can be easily mistaken for bladder campion or night flowering catchfly. However, white cockle is not sticky. This plant prefers full sun and well-drained soils. It is commonly found in hayfields and can come in the seed mixes. White cockle usually has a few stems per plant that are swollen at the nodes. Leaves are opposite, hairy, and lance-shaped with pointed tips. There are numerous flowers arranged in spreading clusters. Flowers are white and have 5 notched petals. Orange hawkweed. Orange hawkweed is a species that is spreading quite rapid in the county, and we are trying to get a handle on it. It is a perennial plant with a fibrous root system. It can reproduce by seeds and roots. They have many characteristics of invasive plants, such as high seed production and germination rates, asexual seed production, easily spread by wind, and vegetative production via roots and even root fragments. It also grows quickly and early in the season. Hawkweed prefers well-drained, coarse-textured soils with low organic matter. Stems are erect and usually solitary. The leaves are found at the bottom of the plant. They are lance-shaped and very hairy. Orange hawkweed is unique among hawkweeds as it has red-orange flowers and are clustered at the top of the plant. Meadow hawkweed. Meadow hawkweed is very similar to orange hawkweed, except it has a bright yellow dandelion-like flower. They live in the same type of conditions and have very similar characteristics. I find meadow hawkweed to have a little bit softer hairs and is sometimes a lighter green color. Creeping bellflower. This one you won't find too much in the county, but you'll find it more so in Drayton Valley and Breton because it's most commonly used as an ornamental flower. It is a perennial plant that can reproduce by seeds and creeping rhizomes. The roots of creeping bellflower are aggressive and can travel far and even under sidewalks. This plant can survive drought periods and a variety of light conditions. It may be mistaken for native harebells, however, creeping bellflower is usually much larger. The stems are usually purple or reddish once they mature, and the leaves are heart-shaped with toothed margins. It's a pretty purple flower that droops down on one side of the plant, and the flowers have 5 united petals. So I'm just going to quickly go over what the difference between a weed report and a weed notice is, because there's been quite a bit of confusion, and we often get calls from landowners that are worried that we have sent them a notice. I want to clarify just the difference. A weed report is sent to a landowner or landowners after an inspection on the property has been done, and then a weed report is sent out just to inform the landowners of the weeds that are present. It will have the type of weeds that are present on the property, the percent of weed cover, and it will also have the growth stage of the weed. If no weeds are found, then no inspection report will be sent. In the mail and in the letter that you'll get, along with the weed report, you'll get a few fact sheets of the weeds found on the property, just to give you guys some general information. If there is hawkweed found on the property and is included in the report, then we'll also give you a hawkweed program form in with your weed report. Weed notices are sent as a last resort. We want to work with our ratepayers to find the best way to control the weeds before more serious action is taken. Before receiving a weed notice, you would have gotten a weed report. Also, if the weed inspectors have made multiple attempts at contact and no efforts have been taken by the landowner, and the infestation of weeds is significant, with no control efforts made, then that's when a notice will be sent. The weed notice will be mailed out as well as either hand-delivered or posted on the property. It will include a due date of when control needs to be completed by before enforcement is done. And then if enforcement is required, then we will hire a contractor who will come out and do the weed control, and then the bill will be required to be paid by the landowner with an additional administration fee. This is what a weed report and a weed notice looks like. A weed notice will also have a map included, however, on a different page. But our weed report is just general information with inspector's notes saying where they had found it and that sort of information. Here's a picture of our current weed inspectors for the summer of 2020. We're really looking forward for them to get out there and start finding us some weeds. I just want to go over quickly the weed inspecting process. So once the weed inspectors have completed all their required training, they'll head out and to begin inspecting property throughout the county. They do inspect all types of property, like private land, county-owned land, provincial land, industrial areas, and then they also inspect the town of Drayton Valley and the village of Breton. After an inspection is completed, then the weed inspector will fill out the weed report on their computer and make a polygon of where the weeds were found. If a phone number of the landowner is on file, then the weed inspector will give the landowner a call and make a plan with the landowner about how control methods will be done. Once the weed control is completed and a plan is in place, then just give the weed inspector or us a call, and then we will go out and re-inspect and make a note on the weed report that control was done and also include a date of when it was done. This is our sprayer operators for the 2020 season. They are the same as our sprayer operators last year, so we're really excited to have them back. We also have some rental equipment available for rent we want to work with our landowners to control the weeds throughout the county. So if you guys bring in a weed report and there are noxious weeds or prohibited noxious weeds on your land, then you are able to rent the sprayer equipment for free. Rental prices can be found on the county website. And if you would like to book a rental, please contact Nancy at the office. We do have some programs to help maybe control some of our weeds. So we have our Hawkweed program. With that, all you have to do is fill out an agreement with us, and then our side-by-side sprayer will go out to your property and spray up to 5 acres of hawkweed for free, which is really nice. I think it has been helping with some of the control of hawkweed. So if you know that you have it, or if you've gotten weed reports in the past, then give us a call and we can get you signed up for that. We also have a herbicide rebate program. It's 60%. So if you have done weed control on your property, just bring in your herbicide receipt and fill out the application, and then we'll process that and get you your rebate. Here's our contact information and just a picture so that you can put a face to the name. Are there any questions?
Okay, so maybe we'll first go to the chat and we'll address your questions through there. So go ahead and turn your microphones back on if you want to, just in case there's a follow-up question. And in case everyone isn't following along in the chat, I'll start at the beginning. And Doreen just had a question: if this is being recorded, will we be able to go back to it later and get information off the slides? And the answer to that is yes. We are recording all of the voices that you're hearing and the slide presentation as well. So we will post it on social media. It'll likely go on the Brazeau County YouTube page, and then we'll send you a link so that you can review all these slides at your leisure. The next question after that was, does the contractor have to make an appointment to enter the property?
So our weed inspectors will make phone calls to contact the landowner. If those phone calls are not successful and we're not able to reach the landowner, the contractor still will go out and do the work, but we do make our best efforts to contact the landowner beforehand.
Okay, our next question is, how often does the county utilize contractors for spraying?
So we do have an in-house crew that does our roadside spraying, our hawkweed program, all of our own in-house spraying, but we would use contractors for enforcement. So that really depends on the year. We've been pretty lucky to have landowners comply with our weed notices. So since I've been at the county, it's usually once or twice a year.
Great. Sorry, go ahead, Donnie. Okay, we'll move on to the next question in the chat, and the question is, what would you recommend for herbicide application to gravel area on a farm, non-selective with higher residual time than, I don't know how to say that word.
Like I say. So unfortunately for non-selective and residual, glyphosate would be the only commercially available product. There are other products that are residual that are used on industrial properties, but the label doesn't allow for use of those products on farm or in a residential situation, unfortunately.
Okay, and now another follow-up question about the contractors. The question is there a bid that the work for contractors goes to?
Because they are one-off projects, there is not. So we generally look locally first and see if the contractor can fit us into their schedule.
Okay, that looks like all the questions that we have in the chat room there. So if anyone else has any other questions, go ahead, turn your microphone on and go ahead and ask away.
I have another question.
Sure, go ahead.
So I'm looking to get my my applicator's license, and Lakeland currently can't do it because they typically do it in Edmonton. Is there any way that I could maybe contact them to see if I would be able to do it at the at the county here? Like, I'm not sure how closely you work with them because they're the ones that hand out all their certificates, but just trying to find different routes to be able to still get my certification.
Yeah, and I actually have to get my certification renewed this year, so I've been getting email updates, and unfortunately for new applicators to get their exam, there are no other options. Lakeland is the only certifying body in Alberta. So I know that they do use other colleges for the exams, but they're the only ones that administrate that exam. So unfortunately, we go through the same process as all other applicators for our licenses, so we are not able to license anybody.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I guess I would hope that maybe Lakeland would consider, like, sending the exams out to have, at the county buildings would be great, because then it would open it up for people not having to go to the city to do it, but I guess we'll just have to wait.
Yeah, unfortunately, so sorry about that.
That's okay.
So I also wanted to add, because we did get a question about control methods. We didn't go through control methods with the weed species, only because every situation is different. So if anyone does have any questions about identifying a weed or how to control a weed, you can always give us a call here at the office, and we'll be able to kind of figure out what your specific situation is and make recommendations based off of that. Is there any other questions?
So as long as you can demonstrate that you're trying to deal with the weed, a person shouldn't have an issue?
So that depends, because sometimes things like people want to cultivate in order to control a weed, but unfortunately with some weed species that actually spreads them. So, and people also prefer to mow. So as long as they're keeping that weed infestation from spreading when it comes to noxious weeds, that's what the Act reads, is that you must control the spread. So if your control methods are stopping the spread, we would accept that as control. If it's getting spread outside of your property, that's where we would start to look at weed notices.
Okay. Who do we talk to about the county ditches that have Oxeye Daisy in them that don't get controlled until after we've done it?
So we do have, last year we got a second spray truck. So we've been working on the timing of our weed spraying in our ditches. And unfortunately with one truck, we just obviously aren't able to be everywhere at once. So with two trucks, we're hoping to be able to hit those weeds with better timing in order to gain control.
Because I'm seeing a lot of Oxeye Daisy going to seed before anything seems to be being done to it. And then the seeds blow onto our places and we become responsible for trying to deal with them on our places. So yeah, hopefully two trucks will be enough to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you ever are having issues, you can always give us a call and give us the exact locations, and then we'll be able to time our spraying better.
We also
Okay.
try to rotate where our sprayers start at the beginning of the year. So places that maybe got sprayed last year will get sprayed first this year, and so forth, just to try to help with that as well.
I don't know whether you guys noticed, but last year the Oxeye Daisy flowered about 3 weeks earlier than I've ever seen it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, last year was an extremely difficult year, and I think it was difficult for us. It was difficult for landowners. So with all the wet weather, because we can't spray into any standing water, it definitely delayed us, and we had a minimal amount of good spray days because you have to pay a lot of attention to the weather. So last year was definitely a difficult year in particular.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? One thing I do want to add is that when we sent out our advertisement for the weed workshop, we mentioned a weed ID booklet. We do have these booklets at the county office. Unfortunately, the office is closed to the public for the time being, but when we do open up again to the public, feel free to stop by the office and pick up a little booklet. They are free, so please stop by and pick one up. If you have any other ideas for any workshops that you'd like to see us do, just give us a call or shoot us an email. This is our very first workshop that we've done in this format, so if you have any comments, good, bad, or otherwise, we welcome them as well. You can call the office or email any one of us. We'd love to talk to you about this workshop or any other future workshops. And if that is all, I will thank you all for taking time out of your day to join us. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Go ahead. I just had a quick question.
Sure, go ahead.
Somebody was mentioning, well, whoever was talking before was talking about Oxeye Daisies. We live next to Highway 616, and that isn't the county, as far as I understand. The highways are another thing altogether, are they not?
Yes, you're correct. So the highways are maintained by the province, and every year we have a conversation with the local contract maintenance inspectors. So they're the people who locally in their area decide what work gets done, and it depends on the budget that they have. So it can be very difficult to get the province to act on those controls, but we will be looking at our options in order to get that work done. We understand that the highways, not every single highway can be sprayed every single year, so we do encourage them to rotate, but we do receive a lot of complaints that those weeds are spreading. So we do work to kind of pressure the province to complete that control work.
Well, we just keep spraying it because we don't, it's not daisies that are our issue, it's thistle. And that patch just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and it blooms, and then of course it blows. And of course, it's on the north side of our property, so of course it comes into our field. And so we've been doing the spraying there, and to be honest, I don't think they've been out. I think like the last time I saw anything that was killed was probably 5 or 6 years ago at least.
They mow it, that's about it.
And they don't mow it very often either.
And it's usually out.
Yeah. So anyway, okay, so you guys aren't responsible for that.
No, not the highways.
Okay, I that's what I thought, but I wanted to make sure. Well, that was very informative. Go ahead.
On that topic, would you guys be the best people to let know about patches along the highways so that you can say, hey, look, we've got complaints from 3 landowners about this spot? rather than all of us trying to contact someone that we don't know who to contact?
Yeah, so there's a couple different things that you can do. You can let us know, and we can put it into our weed inspection system so we can start tracking those hot spots on the highway. Our weed inspectors do it in their daily weed inspections as well, but in case it's been missed, we can add it to our system. And you can also contact your local MLA because as we've seen with the provincial budgets, a lot of things changed in the past year. So I know that weed control has gone down on the list of priorities for Alberta highways.
Okay.
Okay.
I know you didn't want to talk about this, but can I ask what you guys feel is the best way to get rid of thistle?
For thistle, it would be spraying, especially timing is important. So once you start to see it flower later in the summer, that would be the good time to start spraying it. With thistle, when they have massive root systems, so they're taking all the energy from the roots and bringing it up into the plant when they're growing early in the season. So if you spray it later on, they're starting to move the energy from the plant back down into their root system for the winter. So you actually get a better kill of more of that root system later in the season.
Okay, that makes more, actually that makes sense. So we've been doing it totally wrong. Thank you for that. I'm glad I asked.
Yeah, no worries. So if you think of any questions later on, you can always give one of us a call and we can help you out with that. But we'll do a last call for questions, and if there is none, we will thank you for joining us once again and close down the presentation. All right, it sounds like there's no more questions. So everyone,